Once upon a time in the land of handsome princes, noble kings and beautiful princesses, there also lived a wicked witch, a wily wolf, and a ginormous giant. Deep in the forest was the vilest of all, a wicked witch, who casts another evil spell. Will the princess prick her finger and sleep for 100 years? Find out in this story of wolves, witches, and giants called The Sleeping Beauty. Once upon a time there lived a king and queen who had everything anyone could wish for. A dishwasher, a TV, a magnificent castle on a mortgage, a beautiful kingdom. But they had no children. At last, however, the queen gave birth to a baby daughter, and the king decided to hold a splendid christening party to celebrate. He invited friends and relations from all over the kingdom and Lewisham, and most importantly, the 7 fairies. Each fairy in turn offered the baby princess a special gift, the gift of love, of beauty, and the gift of money. Just as the fairy of happiness was about to bestow her gift, the great doors of the banqueting hall burst open, and there stood Wicked Witch of the Forest. Oh dear, blustered the king, realizing he had forgotten to invite the witch. The witch approached the cradle and, bending over, whispered into the child's ear, "Princess, on your 15th birthday, you'll prick your finger on a spindle and die. Die, diddly-eye, die. The wicked witch drew back from the cradle, and with a swirl of her cloak and a clap of thunder, she hailed a taxi and was gone. In the horrified, hillified silence, the kind fairy of happiness came forward to the crib. "You shall not die, child. I shall use my powers to save you. True, you will prick your finger, but then sleep for 100 years, after which a handsome prince will come and rescue you, and the evil spell will be broken." On the day of her 15th birthday, the king and queen were away on a state visit to Catford. The princess decided to explore the narrow staircase that led up to a tower. At the top, she found a door with a silver key in the lock. As she turned it in the door, it sprang open, and there was an old lady. "What are you doing, old lady?" "I'm spinning, child. Have you never seen a spinning wheel before?" "No, never. May I have a try, please?" No sooner had she taken the spindle when, guess what? She felt a sharp prick on the tip of her finger and instantly fell down lifeless on the stone floor. Cackled the witch as her prophecy was realized. The king and queen were horrified and hillified when they heard the news of the princess. He decided that his sleeping daughter should be placed in the most comfortable bed and should lay in the same hall as her christening feast all those years ago. By now the word reached the ears of the Fairy of Happiness. She realized that sleeping for 100 years was all very well, but who would look after you when you eventually awoke? She decided to act at once and sent everyone in the palace to sleep. Even the king and queen, which was a little frustrating as they were playing cards and the king was about to say, "Snap!" Which was very strange because they were playing bridge. Horses fell asleep in their stables. The cook fell forward into a huge bowl of porridge. The cat, about to pounce on a mouse, froze in midair. Chambermaids slumped on their beds, soldiers at their posts, as the last embers in the kitchen fireplace blew out, leaving an eerie silence. Starting as weeds in the cracked pavements, plants grew unchecked into huge vines and creepers, completely covering the palace. Outside in the grounds, the little saplings turned into thickets and forests, and around the edge of the forest there sprang up a large city. It was only when a passing prince disturbed an old man snoozing by the road that our story begins to resolve. Deep in the forest there is a palace. The prince, armed with a sharp sword and a pair of secateurs, began cutting his way towards the palace. The witch had set traps to stop young men reaching the sleeping beauty, but the prince was equal to all of them. The prince succeeded in reaching the palace. He marveled at the cobwebbed animals and people, all asleep and covered in dust and porridge. Here was the king and queen with their playing cards, the cat ready to pounce on the mouse. But there, oh baby, on a bed in the middle of the hall was the beautiful, luscious, sleeping princess. Gently he walked up to her and kissed her, and to his delight she opened her eyes and smiled at him. At that very moment life returned as if only a second had passed and not 100 years. "Snap!" said the king, reaching for his dusty cards. The kitchen fire started to flicker again, and the cat pounced on the mouse, who had waited 100 years only to be caught and eaten. Oh, hard luck, brother. The king and queen were so happy with the prince for waking them up that they agreed he could marry their daughter as soon as he wished. Many years ago in a small village, a man lived with his daughter. Her name was Rapunzel, a name she hated because everybody teased her. "Oh, why couldn't I be called Diana or Sarah or something?" she cried, thinking one day she might meet a prince and such a name would come in handy. "Quiet, Rapunzel," shouted her father. "We are very poor and can't possibly afford a fancy name like that." They lived next door to a wonderful garden full of vegetables and fruit, but unfortunately it was owned by a witch. Poor Rapunzel was made to steal vegetables from the garden because her father had no money for food. So every night Rapunzel slipped out of the house and into the garden. carrots, yum, yum, she whispered to herself. Cabbages, yuck, I wouldn't be needing...
You won't be needing anything where you're going,
called a chilling voice behind her. Rapunzel slowly turned round and came face to face with
the witch. What is your name, child? Cackled the witch.
Rapunzel, came the terrified reply.
A perfectly delightful name, continued the hag. Why, I would have called you that myself. So, Rapunzel, you shall come with me to my tower in the middle of the forest. But first, I must put a spell on you. Cauliflower pastry, treacle and jam, the wickedest witch in the world who I am. In a flash, Rapunzel found herself in a tiny bare room with only one window atop a 100-foot tower. As she looked out of her window in despair, she realized there was no door to the tower. She was quite alone. Over the years, when the witch visited her, she would call out from below, Rapunzel! Rapunzel! Let down your hair, Rapunzel! On hearing the command, Rapunzel would throw down her plait of beautiful golden hair, and the witch would grasp it like a piece of rope and climb up the wall and in through the little window. Soon winter gave way to spring, and Rapunzel would imitate the birds. My man, said the farmer of the band, her lovely singing voice echoing through the glades of the forest. My man, said the farmer of the band, and don't dilly-dally on the way. One day a handsome prince happened to be riding by. The prince heard the wonderful voice drifting out from the top of the tower. He longed to meet the owner of such a beautiful voice. But as he approached the tower, he noticed that someone had got there first. He hid behind a tree and watched as the witch called up to the little window in the tower. Rapunzel! Rapunzel! Let down your hair, Rapunzel! The old crone climbed up, using the hair as a rope. So, this was the way to meet the beautiful singer. The next day he returned and called up to the window, Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair. At once the plait of golden hair cascaded to the ground, and the prince, copying the witch, climbed up the tower. As he clambered through the window, he drew back in delight at Rapunzel's ravishing beauty and fell instantly in love. But the prince, being painfully shy, couldn't bring himself to ask for her hand in marriage, or any other part for that matter. The words simply stuck in his throat. Embarrassed, he fled and vowed he would ask her the next time. Early the next day, the prince found himself again in Rapunzel's tiny room. Steeling himself to pop the question, he stammered, fleeing from the tower. The next visitor to the tower was the witch, who hurt Rapunzel by tugging too hard on her hair. "Oh!" cried Rapunzel as the witch climbed in through the window. "The prince is much less clumsy with my hair than you are." Her voice trailed away as she realized that in her pain she had given away the secret of the prince's visits. "So," sneered the witch, "you've been having visitors, have you? and in an instant she cut off Rapunzel's beautiful hair and spirited her away to a lonely cave on the edge of the wood near Edgware. The witch remained in the tower, awaiting the visitor who had been deceiving her. Sure enough, she soon heard a voice.
Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair.
The witch attached one end of the hair to a strong hook and then threw the plait to the ground below. This time the prince was so determined to ask Rapunzel to marry him, he was hardly through the window before he blurted out,
Rapunzel, I love you, darling. Will you marry me?
Oh, yes, please. The prince was so shocked by the ugliness of the witch that he jumped from the window. Closing his eyes and vowing he would never open them again till he heard Rapunzel's voice. For years after, he wandered aimlessly, calling out for his love. He had almost given up in despair, when one day he heard the beautiful singing once again.
My man, said the father of the band, and don't dilly-dally on the way.
By pure chance, he had come to the edge of the cave in Edgware, where the witch had hidden Rapunzel all those years ago. As they fell into each other's arms, he opened his eyes once again. They set off at once for the prince's kingdom, where they married and settled down in a huge palace in London SW1 and lived somewhat unhappily ever after. Once upon a time, a widowed man lived alone with his daughter. A happier pair you could not imagine. As they played hide and seek around the house.
I'm getting old, dear daughter. I can't keep up this rough and tumble with you much longer. I've decided to bring in a housekeeper.
And what a cruel housekeeper she turned out to be. The happy days with her father were a thing of the past, as the little girl was blamed for everything. Worst of all, the father believed the new housekeeper and so said nothing when the child was shut out of the house with a crust of bread and a saxophone. She slipped away to the little woodshed, where she wet her dry bread with tears. "Don't be so unhappy," said a voice. It was a little mouse. The girl, forgetting her own troubles, threw the mouse a scrap of bread. "Oh, thank you," said the mouse. "As you have been so kind, I will give you a word of warning. Beware of the housekeeper if she asks you to run an errand to her sister, because she is a witch and will eat you up." The girl thanked the mouse, and soon enough the housekeeper called her inside to clean up and tidy the house.
Child, you are to go and visit my dear sister and collect some items for me. Here is a list.
The housekeeper told the girl how to find her sister and gave her a little food wrapped up in a cloth bag. As she left, the little girl went into the woodshed and found the mouse. "Will you come with me, mouse?" she said. "You can ride in my food bag." Off they went toward the witch's cottage. As they approached, the mouse called out from the bag, "You can drop me off here. This is far enough for me." The mouse advised her to pick up anything useful on the rest of her journey, like gold bars, and pop it in the bag. Following the mouse's advice, she soon picked up a comb, a few scraps of meat, then a loaf of bread, and finally a little bottle of olive oil. She put everything in her cloth bag and soon arrived at the witch's cottage, through the squeaky gate, past the chained dog, and knocked on the door.
So, my sister has sent you for a few things, eh? Well, give me the list, and while I'm busy, you can get on with some spinning.
But instead of going to look for the things on the list, the witch went to the kitchen and stoked the fire beneath a huge boiling pot.
Soon that stupid child will be cooking for my supper.
Meanwhile, the girl was watching a thin black cat waiting by a mouse hole.
I haven't eaten for days, complained the cat.
Well, luckily, I found some scraps of meat along the way. Would you like them?
Oh, yes, please.
Can you help me escape? The cat agreed, as the little girl had been so kind, and took over the spinning for her as she crept out to the witch's cottage.
Are you still spinning?
Oh, I am, said the cat as the wheel clattered round. The little girl wanted to cross the witch's garden, but barring her way was the fierce dog. The girl took the loaf from her bag and threw it towards the dog.
All these years the witch has never fed me properly, but you have given me a loaf. I'll let you go past.
The little girl made her way down the path to the gate with the squeaky hinges. She reached into her bag for the bottle of oil and poured some on the hinges. All these years the witch has opened and shut me, but never once has she given me a drop of oil. I'll open silently and let you through. Meanwhile, the witch called out again from the kitchen.
Are you still spinning? Oh, I am. Wicked girl!
Screamed the witch as she dashed through the front door, past the fierce dog, through the gate, and chased the little girl as fast as her spindly witch legs would take her. The little girl ran across the meadow where cows were grazing. As the witch caught up with her, she threw down the cloth she had used as a bag. The cloth grew bigger and wetter and turned into a river between her and the witch.
Drink it up, she screamed at the kettle. Faster, faster.
The little girl managed to stay ahead, but not for long. The witch gained on her at every step, and the girl almost gave up hope when she remembered the comb. She threw it down, whereupon the teeth sprouted up like a forest. Thicker and thicker it grew until the witch was completely trapped in the branches and could not escape. When she saw her father, she told him how wicked the housekeeper had been and how the sister was a witch. The father threw the housekeeper out, and for the rest of his days lived happily with his daughter.
Once upon a time, by a great forest, there lived a poor woodcutter and his wife with their 2 children. A boy called Hansel and a girl called Gretel. Oh, what are we gonna do? We haven't enough bread to feed ourselves, let alone the children.
Simple, said the cruel wife. We'll set off tomorrow with the children deep into the woods and leave them there. They'll never find their way back, and we'll be rid of them forever.
The woodcutter was horrified, as were poor Hansel and Gretel. Poor Gretel started to cry her eyes out. Ah! Quiet, I'll think of a way out of this. Outside the cottage, Hansel filled his pockets to bursting with shiny pebbles and crept back inside and up to bed. At dawn, the mother shook the children roughly to awake them.
Get up, you lazy birds. We're off to collect wood.
She gave them each a little piece of bread, and off the family went, Hansel's pockets bulging with the pebbles. Unknown to his parents, Hansel dropped a shiny pebble every so often until they arrived in the middle of the forest. Their father built a fire for them and told the children to wait until they returned. You will hear us chopping wood nearby, so don't be frightened. But of course they were, especially in case there were any wolves about. Yummy, yummy. All day the children waited, listening to the sound of an axe. But in fact, the cruel mother had tied a log to a tree trunk and left it flapping in the wind. This is gonna take some thought. It was quite dark by now, and Gretel began to cry again. Ah! Oh, shut up, said Hansel, telling her to wait till the moon rose. Then they would find their way home. Sure enough, when the moon had risen, all the little pebbles Hansel had dropped shone on the path like new silver coins. They followed them back and arrived home in time for a wholesome breakfast of stale bread and water.
You naughty children! We thought the wolf might have got you.
Later that evening, the children heard their parents having their traditional evening row.
This time we shall take them even further into the forest.
When she heard this, Gretel cried her eyes out and then back in again. Don't worry, I'll think of something. He thought of elephants, but it wasn't any use. The next morning, the family set off into the wood. And Hansel trailed behind, dropping little morsels of bread he had crumbled up as he had dropped the pebbles a day earlier. This time, the children were led even deeper into the wood, and as before, their parents left them by a little fire. When they had gone, Hansel reassured his sister they would be able to follow the trail of breadcrumbs in the moonlight, just like the shiny pebbles. But whereas birds and mice do not eat pebbles, they do eat inviting little morsels of bread and an occasional elephant. So, when the moon rose, Hansel found the trail of his breadcrumbs were gone, and the children were lost in the middle of a huge dark forest. Quite suddenly, they came across a little cottage made of gingerbread, with a roof of chocolate biscuits and windows of barley sugar. The children, who were starving anyway, set to work breaking off bits of house and eating away to their heart's content. Suddenly, the door was opened by a witch.
You poor children, what brings you here? Come inside and stay with me. I will not harm you. You must be very tired. Why don't you have a cup of hot chocolate?
another 2 for the pot.
When I fatten them up, they'll make a wonderful meal.
The witch enticed children to her cottage because it was made of chocolate and sugar. She grabbed Hansel and put a spell on him. Cauliflower pastry, treacle and jam, the wickedest witch in the world who I am. In a flash, Hansel was trapped in a cage.
Go and cook something for your brother, child. When he is fat enough to eat, I'll eat him up.
Every morning the witch went to the grill of Hansel's cage.
Hansel, stretch out your fingers so I can feel if you are fat enough to eat.
But Hansel, a clever boy with 2 A-levels, pushed through a little thin bone he had found in the bottom of his cage, and the witch, who had poor eyesight and no A-levels and a poor sense of humor, was astonished how long it was taking to fatten him up.
I can't wait any longer. Go and fill the cauldron with water, girl. Today, fat or thin, I'll eat him up.
The witch started to prepare the dough for baking.
I shall need some fresh bread with my supper. Gretel, open the oven door to see if it's hot enough for baking. When she's in there, I'll slam the door and I'll eat her as well.
Gretel knew what was on the witch's mind. It looked like hair. She asked the witch to show her how to open the oven door.
Stupid child! Let me show you.
The witch opened the door, and with an almighty shove, Gretel pushed the witch in and slammed the door. Gretel rushed to release Hansel, and they eventually found themselves back at their cottage. They were not sorry to learn that their cruel mother had left their father to join the army, and the children lived with their father happily ever after.